right, this is the notes for 7-5, and we're going to be looking at parallel and perpendicular lines. So we're going to use this graph to find the slope of each of the lines. So let's first look at A. So here's A. So we're going to find 2 points that go through corners nicely, and there's 2 points. So remind ourselves, slope on a graph is rise over run. So we rose 1, we ran 2, so it has a slope of 1/2. We can see that it crossed at the y-intercept is 2, so our equation is y equals, our slope is 1/2 x plus it crossed at the 2. So that's our equation for line A. So now let's look at line B. So again, I'm going to pick my y-intercept as one of my points, and then I'm going to pick another point that goes through the corners. You can zoom in a little bit if you're having trouble seeing that. I know the pencil doesn't always show up great on video. Alright, so again, rise and run. I rose 1. I ran 1, 2. So my equation is going to be y equals 1/2 x. But this time it's crossing at -3. Let's look at line C. So I'm going to find 2 points. I'm going to pick the y-intercepts. And then we've got this point. So my rise is down 2, so -2. Run 1, so I have a slope of -2. So my equation is y equals -2x. And it crossed at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, -8. All right, last line is our D. Actually, that was D, sorry. I didn't follow it all the way through, so I'm going to just move my answers real quick. Sorry to confuse you. Okay, I'm going to erase. Okay, so this line right here was D. I'm sorry. And this line right here is C. All right, so again, I'm going to pick 2 points, my y-intercept, and another point. So I'm going to rise 2, run 1. It's a positive slope, so it stays as a +2. So y equals 2x. And it crossed at -8. Hopefully we didn't have any problems finding those equations. We worked quite a bit on finding equations and slope, but let's look. What lines are parallel? We can see that A and B are parallel, so lines A and B. And what do we notice about their slopes? We can see that A and B have the same slope. Now I want you to think about that. In order for these 2 lines to be parallel and never cross, they have to be going up at the same angle. Okay, we have to have the same steepness so that they'll never cross. And so it makes sense that they have the same slope. Which lines are perpendicular? Remind ourselves perpendicular are 2 lines that cross that make a 90-degree angle. So we're going to look for that 90-degree angle symbol. And we have line D, lines D and A. So D and A, what do I notice? They are reciprocals. This is 1/2, this is 2/1. So they're reciprocals, but they're opposite reciprocals. So that means one was a positive and the other was a negative, but they were the fraction flipped. Reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. So we're going to be working a little bit with that parallel and perpendicular concept. So if we have a slope of 2/3, what would a slope of a parallel be? Well, parallel means the same slope, so it would have the same slope. Perpendicular slope is the opposite reciprocal. So I'm going to flip it, so 3/2, but it's going to be a -3/2. Now that also makes sense that it's a negative, because think about it. I want it to cross, and one line is going to be a positive, and one line is going to have to be a negative in order for them to cross each other. Okay? Parallel have the same slope, so we'll have a slope of -4. Perpendicular is going to be reciprocal. Reciprocal of 4 is 1 over 4. And it was a negative, and it's going to now be a positive because I want its opposite. All right, parallel slope is going to be the same slope. Perpendicular, it's going to be the reciprocal, so 4 over 1. And it was negative, it's going to be positive. 4 over 1 equals 4. Parallel slope, it's going to be the same slope. Perpendicular, we're going to do the reciprocal, so instead of 2 over 1, it's going to be 1 over 2. And it was positive, it's now negative. Parallel line is going to have a slope of 0. Perpendicular line is going to have a slope of, okay, so remember, so a 0 slope is going to be hoi, meaning it's a horizontal. But if we think about that, here's my parallel. It's going to have the same slope. Have perpendicular, I'm going to want a vertical line, which is a bux, which means it's going to have an undefined slope. All right. Let's flip to the back. Determine if the given lines are parallel or perpendicular or neither. All right, so let's look. Well, we don't have the same here, so they're not parallel. Looking at that. But let's look. If I do the reciprocal of 1/2, it would be 2, and the opposite of negative is positive. So this is going to be perpendicular. And I'm going to make a little note here. 1/2 opposite reciprocal would be negative 2. 2. Because that was a negative 1. Negative 1/2. So sorry, let's say that again. Negative 1/2. Opposite reciprocal is 2. I flipped it and it's opposite sign. Let's look at this one. We have a 3 and a negative 3. Well, 3, the reciprocal would be 1/3. It is the opposite, so it's not that. And they don't have the same sign, so this is neither. All right, this one's a little tricky. So x over 7 is the same as 1/7 x. Okay, so 1/7, 1/7. We have the same slope. Because we have the same slope, we're going to have parallel. Okay, let's look at creating our own equation that will, our own slope-intercept form equation that will be parallel and perpendicular. So parallel means it's going to have the same slope. Same slope. So my slope is going to be 5/2. So m equals 5/2. Now we're going to look at 2 ways to do this, okay? 2 ways. So the first way is, okay, I know it's going to be parallel, but I want it to go through this point. So I can't just pick anything. So I can use my y minus y1. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1 to give me my equation. So this is x and y. So my y stays as y. Y1 is 9. My slope is 5/2. X minus 2. So y minus 9, 5/2 x. 5/2 times negative 2 is going to be negative 5. All right. Add 9 to both sides. And we get y equals 5/2 x. Negative 5 plus 5 is plus 4. So that's one way to do it. But I always like showing you another way to do it. So let's do it with a table. So we have x and y. And I have the point 2, and 9. I'm going to put it in the middle of the table, and you'll see why in just a minute. My goal is to find the 0. So if I have a slope of 5 over 2, that 5 is going to be my change in y, and my 2 is going to be my change in x. So my y needs to change by 5. So that's going to go down to 4, and this goes down to 2. So that would also give me my y-intercept. But as we know, sometimes it doesn't always end up being this pretty for us. So this way works no matter what our point is, no matter what our situation is. This one works when our numbers work out pretty nicely. Okay? All right, let's look at another one. Perpendicular. Write the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through the given point and is perpendicular. All right, so perpendicular. We have a slope of 2/9. So we want to do its reciprocal. So reciprocal, we want to do the opposite reciprocal. And if I'm misspelling reciprocal, y'all just have to forgive me because I teach math. And so we're going to have 9 over 2, and it's going to be negative. So this time it gave us answer choices, so we can eliminate B and C. All right, and we want to go through this point. So there's two solutions. Well, there's multiple ways we can do this. We could plug this x and this y into this equation and see if it's true, and plug it into this equation and see if it's true. Or if we were on our calculators, plug it in and see if it'll give us true. Or we can do our y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So I'm going to do it that way. That's kind of how we've been doing this. So y minus our negative 13. We have a slope of negative 9/2 now. X minus 6. And this is probably going to, well, it might not be too ugly. I see that. One answer's ugly, one answer's pretty, so who knows. So negative 9/2 x. I want to change sign. So we're going to do 9/2 times 6. Do a little canceling here. I've got 3. 9 times 3 is 27. Subtract 13 from both sides. Turned out a lot better than I thought it would. And that matched D. Okay. Or we could have put it in the table and saw if it worked out pretty. I don't think it would have worked out pretty doing it on the table. All right, so perpendicular is going to have a flipped and opposite reciprocal for its slope, and our parallel is going to have the same exact slope. These two do get mixed up, so be sure we remember parallel. We want them to be going at the same exact angle so they never cross. So you see that? Versus perpendicular, we're going to want a positive slope and a negative slope, and we're going to want them going at the same angle to get that 90-degree angle. All right? If you have any questions, email me as always. You do not have homework tonight or this weekend, so y'all have a good restful weekend. If you did not turn in your 7.4 homework, you need to turn that in now.